Hi, I'm Chris, and I'm the founder of Luki Bike Adventures, and I am just about to adjust the shifting on this Specialized hot rock. We've already replaced the cables and housing. I put a new shifter on, and the derailleur hanger was pretty bent, and so in a previous video, I already straightened that out. So the last thing to do is to just adjust it to make sure it's going to shift nice and smooth and easy in the way it's supposed to. Now, I tried shooting this video once already, and I'm finding that it's hard to see. I'm recording these videos just on my cell phone, and so I'm having a hard time getting a good view of what's happening here. So I'm going to try to talk through it as best I can. You probably aren't going to be able to see all that well, but you know, maybe as we go along, as this channel grows and whatnot, I'll be able to get a different type of camera set up or something I'll be able to figure out to make this work a little bit better. But at least maybe I can kind of explain the concept to you, and then, you know, just kind of build from there. I've got a lot of bikes to work on, so we'll be doing more shifting adjustments for sure. All right, so with all that said, do the best that I can here. So in order to do this on this particular bike, you just need a screwdriver and 9mm box wrench. So not every bike is the same. Some of them use just a Allen wrench, or I think that's the only, I haven't seen anything else. I don't think I've seen like a Torx. So it's going to be most likely one of those. Look at your bike and see what it needs. There should be a high limit and low limit screw. There should be some sort of pinch bolt, and those are the main. There's also a B limit screw, but you probably don't need to touch that one. We're just going to focus on the high and low limit and the pinch bolt, because those are the ones that are necessary to manipulate. Oh, there's also a barrel adjuster. Some bikes have a barrel adjuster at the derailleur and the shifter. Some only have it in one place or the other. This bike has it at both. So, you know, we can adjust in both places. So the way shifting works basically is, you know, I already have this loose, but let me tighten this up just so you can kind of illustrate this point. So the cable pulls when you shift. The cable is pulled by the shifter, and then as the cable is pulled, it pulls the derailleur. You can't really see. I guess I have to pedal to make that visible. So as I'm pulling this cable, it pulls the derailleur into position in the various gears, and as you loosen it, it releases and it drops back down. The shifter enables you to do that, you know, controlled, especially an index shifter. It goes the specific distance and height it needs to go to get you to the next gear. And so then we are adjusting these barrels, which create more or less tension in just like small amounts on the cable, so that it can get just right, get the positioning just right, so you're in the gears just right. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So let's get started. First thing is you want to loosen this pinch bolt, and so that the cable is just free. Then I like to go to each barrel adjuster and I tighten it all the way in. So when it's tightened all the way in, that's the most slack that the cable can be. And but we want room to adjust to make it more slack if we need to, or more tight if we need to. And so as a starting point, I tighten it all the way in, and then I back it up 10 clicks. So it's like a, I call them clicks, but it's like a notched thing. 7, 8, 9, 10. And this isn't a precise science or anything like that. I mean, you just kind of, you know, if you do 11, if you do 12, you know, whatever. 8, But give yourself some room to move one way or another. If you don't do enough, then you may have to start over again because you need to put more slack in. And you do that with both sides. I already did the other side, so I'm not going to do it again. Just to save on time here. Then, while it's still loose, you want to start working on the limit screws. So one of the limit screws, so basically what they are is they're basically stoppers. So the chain will go up and down, right? And realistically, the only limit to it is how far the cable can get pulled until it hits something, right? And so if it goes too far this way, it jumps into the spokes, and it can jump right off of the teeth and into the spokes, and that can be a lot of damage and a lot of problems. That's the purpose of this disc here, is to keep the chain, even if this is poorly adjusted, to keep the chain from hitting the spokes. If you have it improperly adjusted on this end, again, there's nothing to stop the chain. Once you take all the slack out, the thing that's keeping it on is this limit screw. It stops the movement of the derailleur from going any further. Otherwise, it'll just keep going down until it jumps off of the gears again, and it gets jammed in there, and it's you're not riding your bike anymore. Now you're struggling with a dirty chain, potentially damaging it, potentially causing you to fall, and it seems like those type of things always happen at the worst time, and so you want to avoid that. So your limit screws are what keeps the derailleur and the chain within the confines of the derailleur, the gears, the cassette, the freewheel, whatever it is. Okay, so that's the purpose of that. So the first one we're going to do is the high limit screw. And so that's the one that's going to keep it from falling this way. And so that's with zero tension on the chain, the lowest we want it to go. If you're looking at it from this side where I am, you can see basically you want everything to be aligned. But I actually prefer to use sound. So if you're listening to how it's pedals right now, sounds loud, right? Sounds loud and like, yeah, that's not the sound that we want. So what's happening right now is it's way too loose. It's almost jumping off at this point. So I'm going to tighten this. And by tightening this, it actually pushes the derailleur inward. I know you can't really see that, but that's what happens. And so I'm going to keep tightening it as I pedal. And see how it quieted it down now? So now it's in a good place. It's sitting squarely on the teeth here in like a nice spot, but I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep pushing it in more. And it's getting loud and nasty again. And that's because now it's getting pushed in too far, and it's rubbing on the next row of teeth or the next gear. And if I keep going, there is a limit to how far this can go. And so now it jumped all the way to the next gear because I have it pushed over just entirely too far. So that's improperly spaced. So what we want to do is back this up again. Into a spot where it's nice and quiet. And so right here, it sounds nice and smooth. There's no issues. It's pretty close to the teeth on this side, so I'm going to give it just a smidge more back. Just give it a little bit of breathing room to make it just a little bit easier for it to drop down into this smallest gear. And now that limit is set. And so now we can put this pinch bolt back. I'll put the cable back in this pinch bolt. And so I'm pulling this, like I'm not with all my might or anything. Like I'm pulling it taut. I'm making sure there's no slack in the cable, but I'm not straining myself. I'm not pulling as hard as I can. I'm just taut is typically enough. And now this, not cranking it down. I don't want to smash the cable. I don't want to deform it. I just want to pinch it tight enough that it's not going to come loose. And that's probably good enough. Now, that it's in the first gear, we're going to start adjusting, and so I'm going to shift to the next gear up. Just one click, and it jumped up just like it's supposed to do. It went up to the next gear. Wonderful. I'm still going to make some adjustments. So if you tighten the barrel, that makes it looser. That makes the cable more loose. If you loosen the barrel, it tightens the cable up. And as you tighten the cable, it pushes it that way. As you loosen the cable, it pushes it that way. So tight is going higher, loose is going lower. Up and down the cassette is kind of how I think of it. So what I want to do, I'm going to drop it back down. So yeah, I'm going to drop it up, or bring it back up here, and now I'm going to keep pedaling, and I'm going to tighten it some more until it starts making noise again, like how it was doing before. And so now it's wanting to jump into the third gear. I don't want it to do that, but I want us to get some of that play out. And so I'll make sure we're in a good spot. And so I'm going to drop it back down to get it where it's nice and quiet. And that's pretty good. Now I like to drop it back down. See how that went. That was nice. And now we can continue going upward. So now we've got a little bit of, it's not sounding great. I don't like that. And if you saw the shift wasn't, yeah, that's not exactly how I want it to sound. And so what I typically do, I don't know, does it need to go up or does it need to go down? Do you need to tighten or loosen? I'm not sure. But if I come this way and I look at it, I can see the chain is going to be either closer to the bigger teeth or it's going to be closer to the smaller teeth. It's going to be closer to going to the next gear or closer to coming down a gear. And based on where it's positioned, then I know which way to turn the dial here. So it's rubbing up against the higher teeth. So it's rubbing up against the bigger teeth. It wants to move up. It's just a little bit too tight. So I'm going to loosen the cable a little bit. Not a ton, just a little. And see how that sounds. That sounds better. I'm going to go ahead and shift some more. Drop it back down. I want to make sure the other ones sound good. And make sure it still goes back up. And now, all right, and then you want to be careful when you're going up to the last one because it's not adjusted and we don't want it to go too far over into the spokes. So that's actually fine. So I like to test it. And so again, you're just tightening the screw, and I usually tighten it until it's basically I get some resistance. So if I loosen that up, this is able to move further than it needs to. And so you can either push the trigger and see if that will make the derailleur move. And if it moves, then you need to tighten it up some more. If it doesn't, then you're probably good. But I usually just tighten this up until, like, I'm not, like 2 fingers. And if I start to feel some resistance, then that's when it's done. And then while not even pedaling, push that trigger in. The derailleur is not moving. And we're going to drop it down, bring it back up. And that's it. Shifting is adjusted. You know, go through up and down as many times as you want to. Really pay attention to it, listen to it. And these are pretty small movements. If you have to do a ton of turning here, then something's wrong. If it's you've had too much slack to start off with, or you pulled it too tight. Sometimes something that's easy to happen, and I've done this numerous times, is I started it out, put the pinch bolt in, started it out, and it wasn't in the first gear. So that's something you got to watch out for. Make sure you're in the very first gear, or lowest gear, whatever, smallest gear, however you want to call it. Make sure you're pulling nice and tight, but not overly tight. If, for example, say if it's something I've run into numerous times, is it doesn't want to drop down into the smallest one. That could be that your limit here is pushed in too far. Just back it up a little bit. Same thing here. If it just really doesn't want to jump into the top one, the limit screw could be too far in. Back it up a little bit. Little things like that. If you're finding that it works perfectly in, say, the lower ones, and then it gets all wonky, and then it works perfectly again, there could be something wrong with the teeth here. There could be the derailleur, could be bent. There's different things that could be happening, but if you follow that basic process, it should shift well every time, and if there's nothing else going on. It's hard to troubleshoot all the things that could go wrong, but that's some of it. So play with that, think about it. I'm going to figure out a better way to record this and show it for the next time, or on one of these bikes anyways, that I do this. But if you have any questions, if that made sense to you, if it helped you, please leave a comment. Check out the links below to see more about this bike, the other bikes, the project that we're doing. And thanks for all your support. And I'll see you guys in the next video.